The Bliss Business Podcast, the show about empathy, connection, and consciousness in business. Today's episode is brought to you by Zero Company, your paid search, social media, and programmatic ad experts.
Welcome back to the Bliss Business Podcast series, Marketing with Purpose. These are our short minute series shows where we explore how brands grow through meaning, connection, and integrity. I'm Steven Sakach, joined by my co-hosts, Tullio, Siragusa, and Mike Liwski. Hey, guys.
Hey,
Steven, glad to be back.
I can't believe we're in the middle of July already.
Time flies. So today's episode is about building your brand narrative around purpose, because when you don't just say your purpose, but story it, people start to believe. So we're going to get into that a little bit here today.
Precisely, Steven. Yeah. So, when we talk about purpose and branding, one of the biggest challenges is really making that felt internally and externally, right? It's not just this sort of statement or, a state. That's where storytelling comes in, right? It's so important to, us as humans to being able to relate to things. And so storytelling is key when it comes to making it felt.
And it really, this narrative, this brand narrative is an arc of your company's journey. It connects your why to your struggles and your impact. And that's the key thing, because most companies don't always, reveal their struggles, but that's what makes the whole thing human. So people see your purpose as a lived truth, not just a marketing slogan. And that's the key thing. We spoke in the last episode about REI, how they decided to close on Black Friday so that they can live their purpose. They can actually have the employees go out and do stuff outdoor instead of, being stuck indoors. So this narrative is what really connects people emotionally to your journey, including your struggles in fulfilling your journey and fulfilling your purpose.
Yeah, I like that how you put that, Mike. You said it's not just a statement, it's a state. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it's like your state of being. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that really summarizes it really well. I've never heard that put that way. Gonna have to steal that. Definitely. So yeah, purpose. It's kind of, in a lot of ways, this storytelling part of purpose. It's kind of like the hero's journey, but your company isn't the hero, it's your customer. So your purpose is what empowers them, supports them, transforms them. And so your story becomes the bridge between their life and your values. And that's kind of what we want to get into a little bit today.
Yeah. So really, let's just kind of like dive into it, right? So there are a few things that go into a purpose-driven narrative, right? Usually the key elements are, one, you got to have a clear problem in the world that you're trying to solve. There needs to be a belief about how it should be different, right? Or how it should be solved. As well, the journey that your brand has taken, or that maybe it's already on, to make that belief start to become real. And then the last one, real world proof that you're living it. Because that's probably, I'd say, without that last one, the first three just fall flat.
And it's not so much about being polished as it is about being honest. So it's about honesty. And this theme of struggles is key. It's part of the story. So is growth. So it's about being authentic. So and that is always going to win over perfection every time, especially when you're marketing with purpose. And we see examples of this, like on LinkedIn, you'll see CEOs posting their journey, their struggles in their journey. And you're like, why do I need to read about this? But it's actually them inviting their customers and their clients to see that they're living and they're struggling through their own journey. It makes it real, it makes it authentic, and it humanizes the entire brand. So honesty plays a big role. Just sharing everything, your struggles and your wins is key.
Yeah. And I think in storytelling, we talk a lot about, don't just tell it, you really got to show. You got to show it. So it means showing people. not just your logos and products, but it's, let your employees, your customers, your community, let them become the storytellers. I'm sure most companies out there, you've got all those case studies and things like that. Well, bring them to life, not just according to, the metrics that you're trying to show them, but just to how it really changed them, according to your purpose, your higher purpose of what you're doing. So that when you do that, that creates trust and traction, and that authenticity that we're talking about.
It's key, without a doubt. So I want to talk, just for a second about a great example. I want to talk about Etsy specifically, which I recently, maybe less than 4 weeks ago, had a great experience using Etsy versus a couple other, online e-commerce type organizations or brands. And one of the things about Etsy's purpose is keeping their commerce human, right? You see this in their narrative. I was able to, get to know the creator that I was going to work with because Etsy, number one, champions these creators. They also do a great job of preserving great craftsmanship. And then they, building real livelihoods is part of their story as well. And so their campaigns don't just sell the products, but really what they focus in on is telling the stories about the makers, right? And their hands, really. The buyer's joy that they get from, this interaction or this transaction. And then really the meaning behind the whole transaction. What did it mean both to the maker, but also what did it mean to the recipient?
And I think too, like Mike, you had that great experience myself as well with Etsy. When you hear that story about, whatever it is they're creating and you hear their background, a lot of times that just adds this extra substance to that product that you purchased. They do a really good job at that. And I love hearing all that kind of background. They also do a really good job sometimes on Etsy of doing that kind of surprise and delight thing. Sometimes I've gotten those little extra somethings from that creator that, you weren't even expecting. It was just something small and thoughtful. But they've really created this great joy in that whole process, right? This story about it, and then that extra surprise and delight. So this whole customer experience that I think is kind of underrated.
Makes it so much more meaningful, for sure.
Yeah, I think they share something with a lot of purpose-led brands, and that is a sense of community. Etsy has a very unique community. You become part of that community when you buy from them. And that's a common thread with brands like this. Even if your community is more rebellious by nature, like, for example, Liquid Death. Their purpose is environmental rebellion, making healthy, sustainable choices, punk rock cool. And their entire brand story arc supports it, from their can design to their tone of voice. Everything aligns with that purpose narrative. They challenge convention, but have fun at the same time and are doing good for the planet, save the planet. So, and they cater to an audience that resonates. That's that community. They're all about being unique, doing their own thing, being punk rock, but doing good for the planet all at the same time. You don't have to be a rebel and not have a cause. You could be rebellious and still look good. And so they make it fun. And that's another example of a community that's being created around a purpose-led brand like Liquid Death.
Yeah, that's a good example. And notice how both these brands aren't just broadcasting value. They're kind of inviting us into this sort of journey with them, right? We're not just consumers. We're part of that story as well when we're participating with those brands in that way.
And so the big question always comes up, as we do the show, is like, okay, how do we craft this narrative? So there's a few tips that we can share. How do you begin building a brand narrative around your purpose? That's the big question. So there's a few simple things that can help you get started. The first thing is, what's broken in the world or industry that your brand wants to fix? It always starts with what's the problem you're trying to fix. And in design thinking, we always talk about fall in love with the problem, right? So first, have a love affair with the problem. So identify what that is that you want to fix. And then what personal or collective belief drives your team forward? So is everyone aligned around solving this problem? Do they have some kind of values or beliefs that makes them passionate about doing this? And then what obstacles have you faced in living that belief? So is it real? Is it something that people have experienced? Have they had to overcome this themselves? Do they have what it's like to be on the other side of the problem? Have maybe they experienced the solution? So it's something they've lived. It's experiential. It's not just a theory. And then what evidence shows that you're walking the talk, right? So how are you supporting what you're doing within your organization? Not just how it sounds to the outside world, but how are you empowering your team to live and walk the walk around this narrative? So it's the key is to make it real and to follow this process, to identify what you're solving, what your beliefs are around what you're solving, how you've lived it or you're living it. And then, of course, what are you doing day in and day out to walk the walk?
Yeah, for sure. Right. Don't just talk the walk. And then when those components or those pieces start to reveal themselves, it's really about bringing them together. And then you'll start to see a story that will form from that. And I think, in this point, sometimes brands will get a little bit stuck because they'll start to see, all those, tea leaves starting to come together. And they're like, no, we want to get, make it something epic or something just super memorable. And you don't need to worry about that or, necessarily have to do that. You just have to make it true, right? Let people feel your conviction of what's true.
Yeah. And like we say, once you have that story, weave it everywhere, of course, your about page, but in your hiring process as well, or in your ads or the way you speak on social. I mean, this is one of the reasons we built AI CMO. Check it out at aicmo.io. It's really to help you build that storytelling into your campaigns, into, all the stuff that you're producing out there. So this story becomes a through line for your business and your company. So make sure you're telling that consistently and with, like Mike and Tullio said, make it true. I think that's really one of the biggest areas where a lot of companies fail to connect. So when your purpose becomes a story, people don't just understand what you do. They believe in why you do it. And that belief creates loyalty, alignment, and momentum, and sometimes movements. So this is what we're really trying to get to with a lot of this. Thanks for listening to the Bliss Business Podcast today and our Marketing with Purpose series. Please like, please subscribe, please share, or leave a review. Every little thing helps. And we'll see you next time on the Bliss Business Podcast.